The clinking of silverware against porcelain was the only sound for a long moment, a stark contrast to the cacophony of the bustling restaurant around us. I kept my gaze fixed on the perfectly seared scallops on my plate, willing the tension in the air to dissipate. Across the table, Liam finally lowered his champagne flute, a smirk playing on his lips. His eyes, usually a sparkling blue, held a glint of something I couldn't quite decipher, a mixture of amusement and something sharper. "So, Mark," he began, his voice just loud enough to cut through the restaurant's ambient hum. "How's that modest salary of yours holding up these days? Still affording you those quaint little experiences?" A ripple of unease spread through me. It wasn't the first time Liam had made a jab about my income, but usually it was veiled, a sly comment tucked into a broader conversation. Tonight, though, he seemed to relish the directness, the blatant disregard for common courtesy. My jaw tightened. I'd invited him, after all. A celebratory dinner, I'd called it, marking a small personal victory in my less-than-glamorous career. He was supposed to be a friend, a connection from my past, someone I thought genuinely cared. I took a slow breath, trying to steady the tremor that threatened to start in my hands. "It's fine, Liam. I'm comfortable." My voice was flat, betraying none of the turmoil churning inside. He chuckled, a dry, dismissive sound. "Comfortable? Mark, please. This place alone probably costs more than your monthly take-home. Don't tell me you're still pinching pennies for that beat-up sedan of yours. I just upgraded to the new G-Class, pure power. You should really think about ambition, old friend. It pays off." He leaned back, an arm thrown casually over the back of his chair, surveying the opulent dining room as if he owned it. His designer suit seemed to gleam under the soft lighting, a stark reminder of the world he now inhabited, and the one he clearly thought I was stuck in. The scallops, moments ago so appealing, now tasted like ash. My mind raced back to the long hours, the sacrifices, the sheer grind that had gotten me to where I was. It wasn't his G-Class, but it was mine. Every single thing I had, I'd earned. And Liam, with his inherited wealth and effortless rise, seemed to take perverse pleasure in pointing out the disparity. A knot formed in my stomach, tightening with each passing second. This wasn't just a friendly tease. It was a deliberate, calculated humiliation. He then signaled to the waiter, ordering another bottle of their most expensive vintage, barely glancing at the price on the menu. "Tonight's on me, Mark," he announced, his voice dripping with false magnanimity. "Consider it a lesson in how the other half lives." My eyes narrowed. A lesson, he called it. A demonstration of his perceived superiority. The air around me crackled, charged with an unspoken challenge. I felt a sudden fierce resolve blooming in my chest, pushing past the hurt and the anger. He wanted to play games. Fine. Let's play. I felt a strange calm descend upon me. It was the kind of stillness that precedes a storm, a quiet resolve hardening my gaze. Liam, oblivious in his self-satisfaction, continued to pontificate about his latest business ventures, his voice a drone that barely registered. He gestured expansively, nearly knocking over a bread basket, and a few diners at a nearby table glanced over. I saw a flicker of annoyance on their faces, quickly masked. It seemed his charm had a limited radius. My attention, however, wasn't on his boastful pronouncements anymore. It was on the unfolding scene, on the intricate dance of social dynamics playing out before me. I observed his inflated ego, the subtle ways he tried to diminish me, and a clear path forward began to form in my mind. It wasn't about anger anymore. It was about strategy. The waiter arrived with Liam's expensive wine, a deep ruby liquid that shimmered in the candlelight. Liam took a performative sniff, swirled it in the glass, and then nodded approvingly, as if bestowing a great honor upon the sommelier. "Excellent choice as always," he declared, pushing the glass towards me. "Try it, Mark. This is what success tastes like." I picked up the glass, feeling the cool crystal against my fingertips. The aroma was rich, complex, undeniably pleasant. But as I brought it to my lips, I caught Liam's eyes over the rim. There it was again. That patronizing amusement, that smug certainty that he held all the cards. He expected me to be impressed, to be grateful for this fleeting taste of his lavish world. Instead of drinking, I simply set the glass down, untouched. A subtle shift in Liam's expression. The smirk faltered just for a second. He noticed. "But not thirsty?" he asked, a hint of irritation creeping into his voice. The mask was starting to slip. "Perfectly," I replied, my voice steady, betraying nothing. Just savoring the moment. And I was savoring the quiet dawning of my plan. Every word he'd spoken, every dismissive glance, had woven itself into the fabric of my resolve. This wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my dignity. The main courses arrived then, a beautiful display of culinary art. Liam immediately dug into his steak, talking with his mouth full about a recent golf game with an influential CEO. I picked at my food, my mind meticulously working through the details of what I was about to do. I imagined the bill arriving, the moment of truth. I imagined his reaction. A slow, almost imperceptible smile touched my lips. The dinner continued, a charade of polite conversation on my end and self-aggrandizing monologues on his. He ordered dessert, a decadent chocolate lava cake, insisting that I try it, then ate most of it himself while recounting a story about a ludicrously expensive watch. Each of his actions, each word, reinforced the image he wanted to project, the successful, magnanimous friend bestowing a rare treat upon his less fortunate acquaintance. Little did he know, he was merely building the stage for my final act. The waiter approached our table, a subtle, almost imperceptible nod from Liam directing him. My heart gave a little flutter, not of nervousness, but of anticipation. This was it. The moment I had been orchestrating in my mind for the last hour. The waiter presented the leather-bound bill folder, placing it discreetly between us. Liam reached for it with an air of practiced nonchalance, a triumphant smirk already forming on his face. He pulled out the receipt, his eyes scanning the total. I saw his lips twitch as he registered the sum. A truly astronomical figure, considering the wine and the additional courses he'd ordered without consulting me. "Well, Mark," he began, leaning back, the smirk widening. "A rather extravagant meal, wouldn't you say? Don't worry, it's all part of the experience. My treat, of course." He paused, letting the words hang in the air, a final flourish of his supposed generosity. He reached into his inner jacket pocket, presumably for his wallet. But before his fingers could even brush the leather, I moved. Swiftly, silently, I reached across the table and took the bill folder from his hand. His eyes, initially wide with surprise, quickly narrowed. The smirk vanished, replaced by a flicker of annoyance, then confusion. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice sharper now, a hint of his true arrogance seeping through. Years later, the memory of that dinner had faded into a distant, almost hazy recollection. Life had a way of moving on, of replacing sharp edges with soft blurs. My career, the one Liam had so casually dismissed, had blossomed in ways I could have only dreamed. It wasn't about flashy cars or designer suits, but about genuine fulfillment, steady growth, and a quiet satisfaction that ran far deeper than superficial displays of wealth. My modest salary was now more than comfortable, allowing for strategic investments and a life that was rich in experiences rather than just possessions. One crisp autumn afternoon, I found myself in a different city, attending a major industry conference. The air hummed with intellectual energy, a stark contrast to the sterile opulence of that long-ago restaurant. I was heading to a panel discussion, my mind already immersed in the topic, when a familiar voice, slightly hoarser than I remembered, cut through the hallway chatter. "Mark, is that really you?" Turned. Standing a few feet away, leaning heavily on a cane, was Liam. He was thinner, his once sharp suit now hung a little loosely, and his face was etched with lines of worry rather than the arrogant confidence I remembered. His eyes, though still blue, held a muted, almost defeated quality. The sparkle was gone. A wave of unexpected emotions washed over me. Not anger, not even triumph, but a strange blend of recognition and pity. The man who had once tried to diminish me now seemed diminished himself. "Liam," I replied, my voice neutral, offering a small nod. I wasn't sure what to say, or even if I wanted to say anything. He managed a weak smile, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Well, this is unexpected. You're at the conference." He gestured vaguely at the bustling crowd. "Doing well, I hope." The old condescension was a faint echo, but it was there, buried under layers of something new. "I'm doing very well, thank you," I stated simply, without elaboration or boast. There was no need. My presence at such a high-profile event, not as a guest but as a recognized professional, spoke volumes. He shifted uncomfortably, his gaze darting around the crowded hall as if seeking an escape. Good. That's great to hear, Mark. Things have been a bit volatile for me professionally. Some bad investments, you know. The market can be cruel." He let out a dry, humorless chuckle. "Turns out ambition doesn't always pay off, right?" He looked at me then, truly looked at me, and I saw a flicker of the old shame in his eyes, the memory of that dinner probably resurfacing for him too. The silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken history. "Well," he finally said, breaking the quiet, "it was good to see you, Mark. Truly." He gave another weak smile, a gesture of resignation, and then slowly began to shuffle away, disappearing into the stream of conference attendees. I watched him go, a profound sense of closure settling over me. There was no grand pronouncement needed, no final cutting remark. Life, in its own quiet way, had delivered its verdict. As I turned to continue to the panel, I carried with me not the sting of past insult, but the quiet satisfaction of a life built on solid ground, brick by hard-earned brick. My car, my career, my choices. They were all mine, and that was a wealth beyond measure. Okay, this is an interesting challenge. Shifting to a prequel to explore the history between Mark and Liam, and what led to that explosive dinner, can add incredible depth. It will show the gradual build-up of tension, the history of their relationship, and why Liam's mockery felt so personal. Here's the beginning of the prequel, setting the stage for their dynamic. Their university years began with an unlikely friendship. Mark, the diligent scholar, fueled by scholarships and part-time jobs. Liam, effortlessly charming, supported by his family's discreet wealth. Mark admired Liam's confidence. Liam, surprisingly, seemed to value Mark's quiet intellect. They even dreamed of future collaborations, but even then, subtle differences began to appear. Liam's effortless generosity, paying for dinners Mark couldn't afford, subtly shifted the balance, planting a seed of unease in Mark's mind. After graduation, their paths diverged sharply. Liam, with his connections, soared into a high-flying investment firm. Mark, despite strong grades, navigated the less glamorous, albeit stable, world of data analysis. Their catch-up lunches quickly became one-sided. Liam's stories were of multi-million-dollar deals and powerful figures. Mark's of slow but steady project successes. "You're still at that data analysis thing, Mark?" Liam once asked, his voice laced with veiled judgment. "Aren't you aiming a little higher? There's real money out there, real influence." It wasn't genuine interest. It was a subtle jab, a need for Liam to define his own success by diminishing Mark's. The easy camaraderie of their student days had curdled into a subtle, yet persistent, sense of condescension that would eventually erupt at that fateful dinner. The story then unfolds with the tension building at that pivotal dinner. Liam, emboldened by his perceived success and oblivious to the quiet strength simmering beneath Mark's calm exterior, mocked Mark's modest salary. His words, a culmination of years of subtle put-downs, ignited a quiet resolve in Mark. Instead of reacting with anger, Mark seized control. He took the bill, paid for the entire extravagant meal, including Liam's expensive wine and extra courses, with his own hard-earned money, a silent but powerful declaration of independence. He then calmly exited the restaurant, leaving Liam stunned and humiliated, and drove away in his own paid-for car, a symbol of his self-made success. Years later, fate brought them together again at an industry conference. Liam, no longer the picture of effortless success, appeared worn, burdened by recent professional setbacks. Mark, however, had thrived, finding genuine fulfillment and growth in his modest career. Their brief encounter was devoid of grand gestures or bitter recriminations. Liam's former arrogance had been replaced by a quiet resignation, while Mark carried himself with the serene confidence of a man who had built his life on his own terms. The circle was complete, not with a dramatic confrontation, but with the quiet, undeniable truth that true wealth lies not in what you possess, but in the dignity and independence you cultivate.